Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Teaching our kids to fail successfully. Today we're looking at failure, or rather the failure to let our kids fail. No one likes to fail, and no one wants to see their kids do so either. However, in today's parenting world, and I admit I've saved my children many times, it's all about rescuing children before they make any mistakes. Now, where is the problem in doing this? It's this. Failure, disappointment, things not working out are important because these are the things that help us learn, grow, and develop resilience. If we can identify what didn't work and why, we can then adjust and try a different approach the next time. Disappointment and disillusionment, if addressed appropriately, can allow individuals to develop a growth mindset where they view challenges and setbacks as opportunities for learning and improvement, rather than reasons to give up. Ultimately, the experience of failing and overcoming that failure can build confidence and increase the likelihood of success in the future. So what are we doing to our kids and ourselves? This is one of the reasons why today's world is filled with people and children who are less resilient to life when life turns into lemons. Other factors that are part of this are an increased pressure to succeed and less tolerance for failure, a lack of coping skills to deal with problems that lead to difficulty for individuals to bounce back. Social media can magnify the negative effect of failure as it can highlight other people's perceived, and I say perceived because it's not always true, their successes, and make one's own non-successful behaviours more public. It's important to note that resilience is a skill that can be developed and improved with effort and practice. Turning those lemons into lemonade, so to speak, can be taught with the right experiences and role models. How each individual deals with failure is a reflection of our own unique upbringing and our innate personality. When looking at personality type, there are many different aspects of personality preferences that will determine the way that people handle not doing well and making mistakes and putting up with disappointment. If you're an introverted person and you prefer to process your thoughts and feelings internally, over self-reflection about things that have gone wrong is a high probability. The introvert might not seek support from others, and their self-reflection process can lead to an over-analysis and self-critiquing reflection of their lack of success. Introverts don't always express their feelings, and these suppressed emotions can become overwhelming. If you're an introvert, have a think about what you might do to get your feelings of failure out of your head and into the external world with someone that you're close to. This way you can hear your words and someone can bounce them back to you and help you work your way through your feelings of inadequacy and disappointment. Now, extroverts, they're far more likely to seek support and feedback from other people. They'll talk through their feelings and their thoughts out loud regarding all of their failures. In fact, they might actually talk too much, and people sometimes get sick of hearing them. But for them, it's out of their head. Extroverts don't usually want to dwell on the negatives of their disasters. Once they've vented their frustrations, sadness, annoyance, whatever they're feeling, to the external world, rather than focusing on the past and what's happened, they're more about seeking new opportunities and moving forward. They're less introspective and they rely more on external validation to deal with those disappointments. Extroverts want to hear people telling them, hey, listen, that's okay, don't worry, you can go on. And then they go on and do more. It's important for them. I'm an extrovert, and my husband's an introvert. We both discuss our mistakes, disappointments, and our achievements with our children. They see there are many ups and downs in life, and sometimes life is tough. But you must work through these times, not give up. We try to look at different ways of doing things, embracing challenges, thinking outside the box, giving ourselves credit for the hard work that we put in, whether or not it leads to success. Hanging in there is the key. Business, friendships, parenting, we've made mistakes along the way, and we'll make many more. We tell our children these are our biggest learning curves. We know what we won't do again, and we know what we will. As a parent, being able to sit back and say, you know what, I was wrong, actually tends to go against the grain for many people. I know, because most people like myself like to think that we're always right. But if we can sit back and look at a situation and say I was wrong, but I can move forward because I know this is how I'll learn, we are teaching our children that failure is always there, but it's not insurmountable. It's just a roadblock that we can break through. If you look at failure as a learning experience, you're far more likely to be able to move forward with increased knowledge and be prepared to try new things, no matter what the outcome. I'm Kate Mason, and welcome to Parenting and Personalities. This is the podcast that connects you to the ones you care about the most. Today we're talking to Kari. Kari's a researcher, parent educator who has helped over 25,000 parents, educators and other people who care for kids develop the skills and confidence to promote positive mental habits in their homes, schools and early childhood facilities. She has been a teacher, deputy principal, guidance counsellor and consultant for families. And amongst all of that, she's also the author of the book Raising a Mentally Fit Generation. Welcome, Kari. It's wonderful to have you join me today.
Oh, it's fantastic to be here, Kate. Thank you for inviting me along.
That's all right. Now, you have influenced so many people's lives in such a positive way with your work. Tell me, when did the passion for all of this helping people start?
Most probably started from a young age. However, I guess when I got into teaching, it really kicked in. And that's when I could see we can make a difference in people's lives. Caring adults can make a significant difference in children's lives. And why I've chosen the profession, whether I was working in education and then working with teachers, working with families, working with parents, ultimately what we do makes a difference for the rest of time, because how we interact with children impacts how they're going to interact with their kids, and that impacts how those children are going to interact with their kids. So we're really laying foundations that are critical for mental health and well-being and psychological health, as well as emotional health and well-being, that last lifetimes. And that's where I really, when that clicked and I thought, you can see it in children's eyes when they get a concept or when they understand something. And that's when I thought, that's what I want to help empower parents to do.
Wow, that's a huge big picture look at it. You know, the fact that what we're doing now is actually going to impact generations moving forward. And to tell the truth, I've never really thought about that. That's amazing. So in that thought and moving forward with that, just take us quickly through a few of the jobs that you've been in before we start talking about failure. What kind of things have you done to get yourself to where you are today?
So I started out volunteering for Camp Quality. So I worked through school. I did different jobs, Maccas and things like that. Then volunteered with Camp Quality as well as doing my schoolwork and work. So Camp Quality is a camping program or a support program for children with cancer, and I did that for 20 years. Then I also went and did a teaching degree, did psychology and a teaching degree, and then went and taught, and then went back and trained in positive psychology and well-being, trained in inclusive education, so looking at the diverse needs or needs of diverse learners, became a guidance officer, so did school guidance and counselling, worked as a deputy principal, then as a consultant and worked with families, parents and teachers. Yeah, so a whole wide variety of work.
When we talk about lifelong learning, you're certainly sitting in there. That is that is a lot of learning. Your head must just have so much in it. So let's talk today. We're going to talk about failure. And what we're going to do is talk about helping our kids, the kids that are out there now, and helping ourselves to fail successfully. So tell me, what's happening in the world today? What are we doing? What are parents doing for their children? What are we all struggling with the kids these days?
With failure. And that's why I wanted to talk about it, Kate, because what I so often see, we have right now in this point in time, we've got a significant mental health crisis for our children. And what's going on is that they are not used to failing. They're not used to not getting things that work out their way, or getting bad grades, or not having people not want to play with them, or losing in a game. God forbid if there was pass the parcel and not every child got a prize. When you and I were growing up, pass the parcel was the only child that got the prize was at the end. Like that was the game.
That's right.
People won't play musical chairs because a child's going to get upset because they miss out. Well, life is sometimes about missing out. as adults, we do not always get what we want. We do not always get the promotion. We do not always get the job. We do not always, we're not always successful in handing in our assignments and getting the marks we want, or going to work and getting that report in on time. We fail. And we've got to be comfortable with failing. And the problem is it's an F word. And fail, none of us, we're herd animals. We want to be liked. We want to be accepted. We want to be connected. And so if we feel and have taught our children from growing up that failure is bad, they won't want to fail. I often say to parents, look, children started walking. And did we stop them or pick them up and carry them every time they fell on their backside and had to shuffle along? No, we allowed them to fall over then. That was failure. But it was a failure they needed to know, I can get up from this and I can keep going. So I look at it this way. We need to treat our children like they're learning to walk again. Not baby them, but what I mean by that is we need to give them opportunities to fail. We need to allow them to try and do things on their own, to try and be successful. And if they do stumble and fall over or have a mishap, we're there to help pick them up. We don't pick them up, dust them off and say, oh, it's going to be all right. We say, look, that was a really great effort. I can see you tried really hard. What else could you do? Or I know, and empathize. So have those moments of connection with your kids and say, I know what it feels like to do that. I went for job interviews. If you've got a teenager, I went for job interviews and I got knocked back. And it felt really bad when I was your age. I understand that. Oh, no, you don't, Mum, or what? Like there'll be things like that thrown back, but empathize with them. Allow them to have those experiences, because what research is finding, if we do not allow them those experiences when they're in that safety net with us, so when they're at home, when we've got that connection, when we're there to hold them and pick up those pieces and put them back together, it may feel like our heart's being ripped out of our chest. These children are pieces of our heart that are actually walking around outside our bodies. So when they go through pain, and research has actually shown, if we see our child in pain, and there's if we were in an fMRI, so a functional magnetic resonance imaging machine, we would actually be feeling that pain.
Wow.
Like there's the same neurobiology that our children are feeling. We've got things called mirror neurons. When we see them experiencing pain, we experience pain. So we don't want them. That's the last thing you want for your child, to experience pain. So we often swoop in, pick them up and help them not experience that. But what we're doing is actually allowing them to miss those experiences that cause resilience. Now, I'm not saying we have to put our child out there all the time so they experience pain or do things that drop them in it. No, it's actually learning. So if they put their shoes on the wrong feet, we can say, your shoes happen to be on the wrong feet. Oh, whatever. Well, okay, off you go. And then they'll learn. So it's learning and giving them those opportunities to learn, because fail, I look at it, first attempt in learning.
Right. Yep. Good analogy.
It's their first attempt. It's not about, we don't always have to get it right and perfect. And that's, I think, one of the critical things I try and work with parents about, is that because we have so many children who are highly anxious at the moment and such perfectionists. And, it's okay to get things wrong. As a teacher, I used to say, I got that wrong, or I don't know. And how do we then frame that for children? What, as adults, are we doing as their role models to show them that it's okay not to be right all the time, not to be correct, not to be perfect?
I was working with a parent who was worried about their kid because they didn't focus in class on the details, and they were worried they were going to get low grades. And then this child was given a project, which was something he could run with, and his attitudes and grades went through the roof. He was in his element. Do you and your child need to find their point of difference so they can fly? Let me help you unravel some of the enigmas of their personality and enjoy parenting a kid that you actually understand. After all, parenting's supposed to be fun. Let's chat. thepersonalitycoach.com.au. where did it come in? Because I was one of those people as you were growing up with the kids, and, you know, there was a lolly in every layer of the wrapping and all the rest of it. So nobody cried, nothing happened. Where did that all come in, that we took that out? We took that resilience out. You know, like, when did it start? Because I did it in my parenting, but I grew up crying when I didn't get the present at the end. You know, someone else got it. So what are parents doing at the moment? They're obviously worried themselves too, do you think, about being judged as a good or a bad parent as well? So, yeah, what can they do now, right now? Because obviously there's a whole lot of kids out there that are not learning to fail, like, you know, and you obviously have to start young, but you must be able to fix some of that stuff as you go along.
So first things first, you haven't broken your children.
No.
Please don't think that anybody listening to this, parents, you have not broken your children. You are showing up. You are putting the time in to listen to podcasts, to find out more information. So they're not broken. The research shows with neuroplasticity, there can be new neurons, and neurons that fire together wire together. So the one thing, and I'll go back a bit, the research when we were talking about Harvard, and I was talking just a minute ago before I talked about how we feel pain as parents, part of the problem has become when we feel that pain, we don't want our children to feel that. So we actually stop them from feeling that. Therefore, we don't want our kids to be disappointed. We don't want to be judged as bad parents. We don't want to be the only one whose child cries or those sorts of things. So what we're doing is we actually often make those adjustments so our kids won't feel pain, so our kids won't be disappointed. I mean, even schools are doing it. If you go to a school carnival at the moment, everybody gets a ribbon. No, that's actually not what life is like, because we say, oh, we don't want to hurt people's feelings. Absolutely. We definitely want to be inclusive. We want to acknowledge that everybody has different strengths, but that's something we need to acknowledge. You know, you may not be so good at running, but that's okay, because you might play the violin really well, whereas the person who's really good at running, they may not be able to play the violin.
Yes.
Or they may not be a creative drawer. So it's looking and saying, how can we look at it as a strengths-based approach and saying, you know what, making a mistake, making an error is not so bad, is not so difficult that you're going to fail. Because what children and teenagers are feeling like at the moment is actually that if they make a mistake, and social media and phones have a lot to do with this. If they make a mistake, if they say the wrong thing, it's frequently they feel it's going to be captured on social media and it's going to be there to relive the whole time. So we actually need to teach our children how to be resilient. And that study at Harvard I was talking about before, that showed it. They studied freshmen, and the freshmen, they're the really junior college students. They're going to university. They were at a university that their parents paid for. So these are Ivy League kids, really wealthy children. And the researchers actually said, is there something you wish your parents would have taught you before you came? And this was 6 months in, and these students said, yeah, I wish we could have been taught how to be disappointed, or to deal with disappointment, to deal with hard feelings, to deal with being alone, because all of these things were happening and they didn't know how to cope. And so their emotional well-being was going through the floor. Their psychological well-being was going through the floor. And they were getting Fs on assignment, or they were like, there was these things, they weren't being as successful as they were before. They didn't know how to cope. When we have children in our home environments, in that safety net, we can teach them that it might feel like your heart's going to break now, like it might feel really bad, but it's not the end of the world.
Yes.
This is not something that you have to deal with. Like, it's something you've got to learn how to deal with now. It's not something to end your life over. It's not something to think that you can't get over this. And that's one of the critical factors that I've seen, is that we have kids who are ending their lives because they've made mistakes and feel like it's the end of the world and that it's not going to get any better. And what we need to look at is saying, you know, how can we teach our children to be, one, digitally resilient? Because the genie is out of the bottle with social media. It's there. They have their lives on that. So we're going to have to teach them how to be resilient and how to get over So, Kate, when you and I were at school, we could make mistakes, but they weren't caught on camera.
Yes. Yep.
We'd go home and that we could shut the door to the outside world. Now that's possibly their mistakes are going to be caught on camera. So they don't want to fail. None of us, again, going back to the herd animal, we don't want to fail. We don't want to feel like we're going to be ostracized. But we need to allow our kids to experience certain things to know, you know what? I do have the ability to get over this. I do have the skills. I have my caring circle around me and I know they're going to help me get over this hurdle. That's why we need to allow them the experiences, whether it be going from really young children of getting themselves dressed or getting themselves ready to go to school, like remembering their hat. If they don't remember their hat, like you can prompt them, give them visual cues. But if they don't remember it, don't be the parent that drives to school with the hat.
Yes. Yes.
Because they're not going to be able to play. Actually, simply go, you know what? Well, you forgot your hat today. It's okay. You'll have to play in the shade, or you'll need to play in the library, or you'll need to sit out because tomorrow you'll remember to take your hat. It's those sorts of things. It's making them responsible, because what companies want, what people want, they want people to be able to get along with others. They want young people who are responsible, who know how to do those things, who know that. So if you're going for a job at Macca's, you might not always get it right. But you know that if you keep going, if you persevere, that you'll learn how to fry those fries right, or that you'll learn how to flip those burgers so they don't burn. But if you take criticism so personally that it cuts and you think you're a failure and you'll just give up, that's going to set a pattern for life then, and that pattern is not going to stand them in good stead.
That's a massive problem. How do you start? Where do you start on that? Because I'm just sitting here. I look, I sit here and I fess up and I go, you know what? Fortunately, my children are grown up and I think they're pretty good despite the mistakes that I have made along the way. But they do have resilience, but there still is, and I talk about personalities and parents as well, because I said to my husband yesterday, we have a 29-year-old son, and I said, you are a snowplow parent like crazy, just smooth the way, tells them what to do and then does it for them. Now, I haven't been able to change his parenting style because that's who he is. I've sat in the back and just come in with my bits and pieces along the way, and the kids have learnt about failure and learnt about resilience via different styles of parenting to a degree. Mm-hmm. But even the other day, he said to my son, it was 40 degrees here and he's about to go out the house in jeans, and 40 degrees Celsius, that is, for anyone listening that's overseas. It was really hot and he was about to go out in jeans and R.M. Williams boots. And my husband said to him, you do know how hot it is? And he said, yes, I do. And he said, well, what are you doing? And I just looked at him and I said, let him go.
Yep.
Seriously.
Let him go.
And he came back that night and he's a teacher and he was on yard duty. And I said, how's your day? And he said, really, really hot. I said, so will you have a different choice of clothing next time you go? Yes, I will. And that's an adult. We're talking about adults. Yep. But it is that we save everyone from everything. Yes.
And but you can. So you start little, like you start with how you said, just let him go. Like if people are, and allowing them to face natural consequences. So if something happens, when Mitchell was growing up, we have the Royal Show. So it's a show that comes, we call it the Ekka here in Queensland, and there's the Royal Show or different things, but we went together and I had given him $50 and I said to him, Mitchell, this is going to last all day. So, yep, you can go on the rides, but you need to decide. Now, he wasn't 10, he was in his tweens.
Yep.
So it wasn't developmentally inappropriate. He could know that if he spent money that he'd need to do things. So he spent money and he spent it very quickly and wanted to go on those rides on the Sideshow Alley, and then came back and said, well, I need more money. And I'm not an ATM. Like, I'm not an automatic teller machine that gives you more money. We had this conversation and we talked about the fact that was going to need to last you all day. But I need more money. I understand that. However, we had this conversation and now there are lots of free things you can do at the Royal Show, and we're going to learn how to enjoy those today.
Exactly.
And so it was that. It's not about, because if I had given him more money, what that would have taught him is a lack of responsibility, no budgeting, like if I blow all my money and then I have to come and do that. But also it teaches him that I'm a pushover.
Yes.
That if he comes and if he cries or whinges or whatever it is, that I'm going to change my behavior and fit in with him. And I wasn't willing to do that on that day. If there had been something really special that he couldn't get again, possibly I might have bought it and then said, this is coming out of your pocket money later, or whatever it was. But because we'd had that conversation on that day, which was, that's the $50, that's it, it's done. And you go, yep, that I'm sticking to my guns. And we can start small. So it's things like little children, so small children, taking your hat. If they don't take their hat, like you remind them, pick it up. But if they're old enough, where's your hat? Got your hat? Yep. Or, oh, I can't find it. Again, if we can't find it, well, if you can't find it, we need to put it in the same place. And if we can't find, again, it's not about buying things all the time. And I know children's things get lost at school. I fully understand that. Being a teacher, being a parent, know that. I'm not trying to say punish them for those things. What I am saying is we're creating a sense of responsibility, of ownership, and of knowing that if you try something and it doesn't work out, that is okay. It's not about having to be perfect all the time. So you just start small and then you build up. And again, you haven't broken your kids. They just need to learn how the fact is that life is not always going to be what they want it to be. Life is not always going to be easy.
And it is an awareness of parents themselves with not wanting to send their kids with the wrong shoes to school. I remember wearing my pajama pants under my dress to school one day, and I just remember that I never played on the monkey bars that day because I just knew that that's what. And believe me, it never happened again. That's
right.
Yes,
and that's the thing. They learn of you at that point in time. You'd failed to get out of bed in time to get dressed. And the failure was, you know what, if you don't get dressed, you're going to go like that. And I've said that to parents before. I said, bring them in the pajamas. It's okay. We'll get them dressed.
Yep.
Because children don't want to look different. Like they don't particularly want, and you may have some listeners where they go, yeah, if I sent them in their pajamas, they'd stay in them all day. Look, teachers can handle that. That's not a problem. We can deal. But it's about the fact of if they make a choice, it's helping them understand that was a choice you made. Now you live with the consequences.
And not only have we taken that out of their world of making those decisions, another speaker that I heard was talking, and you and I discussed this too, that we had monkey bars in our play yards. And I don't know that many people in States or Canada that I have an audience there, you swing across them. And when we were kids, you could get across one or two at first and you had to build up. You had to fall off. You had to watch other kids that were way better than you, and you had a desire to beat that and do that. There are no monkey bars in playgrounds these days because everything's too dangerous. We've taken all of the challenges out of children's play as well in those outside areas because people are too worried about being sued in playgrounds and all that type of thing.
And it's fascinating because I'm a big fan of nature play, and what you just talked about, the risk has gone. And unless we teach children how to risk and not be successful, so they'll risk and that it may not work out, but that's okay because they'll problem solve. If you look at children playing and risking and doing things, now I'm not talking risk like climbing up a 20-story building. I'm talking risk about playing with tires or making sure there's no snakes in it. But it's playing with things that look risky to us as adults, things like monkey bars, things like the climbing frame. It's allowing them to go. Because, and again, Mitchell, I shouldn't laugh, but Mitchell got to the top of the the climbing frame and went, I can't get down. Okay, well, I wasn't going to climb up there and do that. I knew he could climb down because he'd gotten up there. So I said to him, and I said, calm, it's okay. I know that you feel afraid. So I acknowledged it. I said, I would feel afraid if I didn't think I could do it. I know you can do this. So what we're going to do, how do you think we're going to solve it? You come up here. No, I'm not going to come up there. You got up there. You can get down. And then I talked him through. But when he got down, it was like, oh, the chest was puffed. Oh, I did it. Yes, absolutely. Because that way he knows if I climb up there, I can get down again. So it's about giving them that opportunity to go. And if I thought he was going to hurt himself or be unsafe, yes, I would have stepped in. But I'm willing to help them take risks, because if we help our children take risks and understand risk when they're little or when they're young, I can tell you what, I'd rather a child understand risk and talk to me about risk and talk to me about having made a mistake than having a tween or a teen get into a car with somebody who's been drinking because they feel the peer pressure.
Yes, very much so.
And they don't evaluate risk. So one of the things we've had, and I've noticed as a teacher, as an educator, working with families, the child's ability, because we've been taking these risky things out, the children's ability to actually
assess it,
evaluate risk, assess risk, evaluate what's going on, it's decreasing, which worries me enormously, because I do not want them in situations that are highly risky without going, you know what, this doesn't feel right. And we talk to kids about sometimes it doesn't feel right. And if it doesn't feel right, these are things you can do.
Wow. So, gee, there's a lot to think about, So if I'm someone listening to you right now, what's one thing I can do to start? How can I start?
How can you start? Start where you are at. So whatever the age the child is, whatever the age you are, even starting and just saying, you know what, helping them take some responsibility. Or if they come home and say, oh, I had a really tough time, or, oh, I got this, or this has happened, or whatever it is. So for example, if you're used to having them ring and say, I've forgotten my hat or I've forgotten my bathing suit, that's where you can start. Of actually, today you're going to miss out on swimming, or today you're not going to play because in Australia we have a no hat, no play policy. We've got very big sun, lots of sunshine and high skin cancer. So in Australia there is a no hat, no play policy. So the fact is, if you don't take a hat, you don't play. And it is, I know you're going to be sad. I know it doesn't seem fair, but you need to have your hat. Mm-hmm. Therefore, that's what we're going to do. If it's around assignments, I know some of your listeners may have older children, young people who are doing assignments. I haven't done it, Mum. Well, okay. When's it due? Tomorrow. We can put a plan together. Can you do it for me? No. Can you write me a note? No. You do what you can do and you hand it, but I'm going to fail. Well, that's okay too. It's not like you should have organised your time better, and that it's a learning experience. So the natural consequences, like you did with your 30-year-old son, you're going to make a choice, a bit different choice next time. Yep, you better believe it. And that's the sort of thing. So it's actually, and keeping in mind, it's like we're teaching our children to walk again. We're teaching them that it's okay to fall flat on your butt and to pick themselves up, dust themselves off. We're there to hold them, to love them through it, to help them get through that. But it's okay not to be perfect.
That's magnificent. Thank you, Kari. Thank you for that. And as we say, even it doesn't really matter what age you are. Seriously, doesn't matter either. I think that, it would still work with my children at this age as well. I think we all have to learn about failure, and it's pretty tough. And I love your anecdotals about the walking, because I think when kids fall over when they're that little, we really don't worry about them. They're close to the ground. It's all okay. And if we think about it like that, and also thinking about our little piece of heart sitting outside our chest, and the fact that it's okay to feel stressed by it, because it is actually a true response in our brain.
Yeah.
And now we've verified that that's okay, because now you can go forward. I love all of that. Thank you so much. You've given me, and I'm sure everyone listening, so much to think about. Now, Kari's also got a wonderful book that I spoke about earlier. So all of her details will be in the show notes below. And she's got an amazing website. And if anyone wants to speak to her or talk to her, she's out there for you. Thank you for being on today, Kari.
Thank you for having me, Kate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Teaching children to fail well is an important part of helping them develop resilience, grit, and growth mindset. Explain to your kids that failures are opportunities to learn and grow, not proof of their worth or abilities. Encourage them to take risks. Help them understand that taking a risk is a necessary part of growth and learning, and encourage them to step out of their comfort zones and try new things, even if they might do it wrong. Teach them to reflect on their failures. Encourage them, what went wrong? What have you learnt? How can you improve? This helps them internalise the lessons from their failures and apply them to the future. Celebrate the effort, not just the outcome. Celebrate the hard work and effort that your children put into their pursuits, even if they don't achieve their desired outcome. Be supportive. Create an environment where your kids feel safe to fail and where they're surrounded by positive and supportive models. Remember, failure is an inevitable part of the learning process, and helping your kids to fail well is an important start to helping them develop the growth mindset and become resilient, successful adults. I'm Kate Mason. Thank you for listening to Parenting and Personalities. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could leave a rating and a review that would help others learn about the podcast. If you're interested in discovering more about you and your family's personality types, you'll find my book, Who Is This Monster or Treasure in My House, on Booktopia or Amazon. If you have an episode idea, please send a note to thepersonalitycoach@gmail.com. Many thanks to our producers at Stories and Strategies, and we'll see you next time.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.